Hey everybody, welcome to episode 54 of Tactical Crouch. We're a competitive Overwatch podcast and we have 6 months of nothing to talk about.
That's not true. This is going to be hype.
Just what are we going to do?
Off-season's fun. Roster moves. We're going to talk about rebuilding. We're going to talk about all the news and the nonsense that's going to happen. There's World Cup. That'll be kind of fun and bantery. Like I feel like this is a little bit overstated. It is a weird, funeral for the season, but I think a lot of people are sleeping on how exciting the offseason is going to be.
I already look kind of forward to the next episode, because now I feel like I kind of need to, keep the holiness of the finals intact. I can't really shit on people. Dude, I have content upon content stacked up where I just want to go in on people for like things they did before the finals, where I'm like, yeah, it's probably inappropriate to come out with that before the finals. And I'm just like stacking bodies here. It's like, well, yeah, I think the off season is as exciting for me as the season was.
Yep.
Well, we've even said it on the show before where, you kind of get the content handed to you over the season, which is fine, but like you don't get to get really introspective on a whole lot of things and go, you know what, let's talk about this week, or let's go on a tangent that we want to go on or something like that. Instead it's like, well, let's, the Defiant played Boston this week. Nobody watched.
Basically, the sides of the boxes that we've been in all season have fell apart. Now we get to just sail the open season. It'll get crazy, but I think it'll be a good time.
Yeah.
I also feel confident that we are going to have more high-profile guests more frequently now. I can just ask people; they're not in the in the high-stress situations. And they also not in situations where they maybe don't want to comment on certain teams because they're maybe that takes a little longer, and it's moving towards December where teams like coaches, for instance, are already established and players have already found their new teams where they can speak more freely. But you don't want to burn bridges, even with like mild, like well-intentioned comments. And I think generally guests are more available during the off season.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So we're going to be doing that. But speaking of good times, Joe, you were at Grand Finals.
I was. How could you tell?
I actually couldn't, I don't know, did the screen was the screen like an ultraviolet?
You have not adjusted your monitors, the contrast, the saturation levels are all nominal. Your boy is a baked lobster. I'm very, very red.
Sure.
Oh, you want to see the band of respect? This is the ultimate band of respect. There's a red half moon separated just by like white boy line.
This is where your hairline used to be.
Exactly. That's very true. A young me would be very scared to see that as you would do that, wouldn't you? There is now a screen cap.
Oh my god!
So hey, you know what?
For that.
You've got the gun to the head. You've got the band of. I am a permanent Naruto cosplayer. That is a beautiful. We'll get to decide what village I'm from later, I suppose. But Grand Finals was great. Got to meet a lot of people. Some people from the show came up and said hi. Met up with them. Eric, Sandman. Much love. Had drinks. Did some work. It was a good time. It was fun. It was fun. Philly was interesting to say the least. Was a little interesting.
You didn't have to tweet out your press pass this time?
No, I really hate that. That's like going to become like a reoccurring meme around finals time every year. I had a ticket. Like they didn't need to give me one. I was fine. But no, I Blizzard did as well up in the media room. It was pretty cool.
Nice.
That's you. Okay, so that's a story. So
okay,
story time. Right. Call the Uber from the hotel, and I'm supposed to go to the Comcast tower or whatever.
Uber driver, is it?
No,
because we already said that we can't talk about that on the show.
No, that's not going to happen.
Okay.
Did have a racist Uber driver. That was a ride. But anywho, this guy was super nice. My Uber driver was super chill. Like he wasn't into gaming, but he had like a cousin or a nephew who was like big on YouTube. That was cool for him. So we kind of like talked back and forth, and then I had like a plan throughout the week to figure out like, when I get into the Uber, what's there to do in Philly? I don't want to hear about the tourist traps, this, that, the other thing. Like, what's your favorite thing to do in Philly? Favorite food, favorite place to go, favorite bar, like you name it, I'll check it out. And he's rattling some stuff off. Like, everybody seemed to have their own cheesesteak shop. And we started talking about like esports, and he was like super interested. And we pulled up to the Comcast like center. And there was like a Philly Fusion thing going on outside with like signing. Achilleos was there. So I assumed that was the building. So I walk in, I go up to the desk per instructions, and I'm supposed to check in and say like, hey, you know, I'm so-and-so, I'm here for the Overwatch League Grand Finals. I need to go up to floor, whatever. So I go in, I check in. They're like, yeah, we have no idea what you're talking about. I'm like, okay, interesting. Turns out through talking to the Uber driver, we had like gone a block behind us. So I had to like loop back around to the proper building. Apparently there's 2 buildings. Walk inside, everything's kosher, everything's great past that point. But I walk inside of I get in line to go up to the floor that we needed to go to, and Tizzy and I think their translator Jun was there. We get in the elevator together, and the security guard's giving them the kind of like a tour of the building. They're like, you know, what's this building for? And the security guy's like, yeah, there's like a hotel. And they're like, well, how much is it to stay here? Just like jokingly. And the security guy laughs and he's like, it's enough. Beyonce used to stay up there, and they were like super impressed and amazed. Like, oh, Beyonce, like it's crazy. And yeah, like it was just a trip to see like everybody just kind of like experiencing like this very like like kind of ritzy little area that they had to set up in. But cute little story of Tizzy being excited for the Comcast Center and what that meant. So
did you say hello?
No, it was fine. It was a quick elevator ride. I mean, I'm not gonna bother him. That's what it is.
Hello, bad bumper.
That's definitely not what I would say.
That's cool, man. That's
yeah,
awesome.
It was just a lot of coincidences like that happened throughout the weekend. So
yeah,
that was pretty neat.
That's great. I only had one. I was at TwitchCon this past week, but I do want to give a shout out to Ed, aka Captain Beans. Stopped by the TC Helicon booth, and my whole day consists of basically talking to streamers about like partnerships and sponsorships through TC Helicon and what that process looks like.
Sure.
It's very exhausting. Not that I don't love hearing from it. Although I did have one. So I had one. This is a tangential story. But if anyone, you feel like, follow me on Twitter or come into any of my streams. I love talking about like community manager horror stories. And I had one where this guy goes up to our booth and he starts badgering like 3 of our employees about wanting to be sponsored. He goes, who do I talk to? And they're like, well, we're not. I kind of gave him like a canned response of like, hey, have them shoot a message to me after the thing. Or if they really want to talk to me, have them come talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
He was just kind of being rude about it. He was like, well, what do you mean? Like, look at how big my Twitter is. Like, look at how big my Twitch is. And he walks over to me and, you know, starts saying like, so apparently you're the only person who can actually sponsor me. And I was like, well, not untrue, but whatever. Like, tell me about your stream and stuff. And so he does. And then he's like, asked me like, how do I get sponsored? And I start telling him how he gets sponsored. In the middle of my response, busts out his phone, starts scrolling through his Twitter timeline as I'm telling him how we can pay him to do that. Like so I literally stop and go, are you really checking your phone right now while you're asking me for money? And he just like, oh, it's just a habit. I have to make sure that I'm like, I can see it's your like regular Twitter screen or whatever. Like, sorry, man. Like, this isn't going to work out. I hope you don't approach all brands like this. And so literally have this guy busting out his phone in front of me. I'm just like, man, what are you thinking, dude? Like, what the hell ridiculous.
Are you? I wish I had that confidence, or like wrong confidence of just
arrogance,
approaching people. And then, yeah.
Anyways, so shout out to Captain Beans though. So he comes up and I'm like expecting like another sponsorship conversation. He goes, hey, I'm Captain Beans. I love Tactical Crouch and all that stuff. And we just sat and chat for like 20-30 minutes about Overwatch League and the podcast. And he asked a lot of questions about like how we got to doing this show together versus like Overwatch League Daily, and it was really cool. So definitely a highlight, if not the highlight of my weekend. So hey Ed.
What's up, Ed? You get a shout out.
Yeah. All right. Yiska, anything exciting happened to you before we actually talk about Overwatch?
No, I guess like if I want to talk about my experience with the finals, I still feel like, okay, and I guess that's a good bridge in talking about it, but I wasn't actually that upset by Chalk just following this. I think it is a very authentic and like, it makes sense, right? It's not like, of course, like when we're in a real world scenario where real world people do this, but like it's not like it from a story writing perspective. It feels like a Deus Ex Machina, where like out of nowhere this just happens. Shock had been on this role, and the fact that they competed this role and just like the entire thing, like honestly, these finals, especially like with the emotional involvement that I personally had in this league, I still feel, I gotta say it like this emotionally, I still feel very full from the final. My heart's still full with the entire experience, with the joy that the players did. I think they did a way better job with the ceremony. I like that moment. Like I had to, like, there were a couple of tears rolling for me. I think like it was a great final in terms of like the experience that I had, even though from a gameplay perspective, of course, it's not like the thing you wanted to have, but just like from the experience, I was definitely entertained. I was satisfied with the outcome.
Yeah, I mean, what was that like? So let's just go in and talk about this for a second. So if you are living under an Overwatch rock, San Francisco Shock swept the Titans 4-0. And it was about as one-sided as it sounds. It was, even for two teams as close and high caliber as they are and should have been, it was not very close by really any measurement.
Yeah, no, not at all.
I was saying, I think I
on
saw
some maps it was, but yeah, not that.
Right, but I mean,
not,
even then, you're like,
yeah.
These are the two best teams that are at 11-11. This did not look like two teams that were 11-11.
Yeah.
You know, I was saying, I think I saw Janu on the kill feed more than anybody else for Vancouver. Like, it was, it was just, it was interesting, man. Like, I would love to know, maybe we can get Harsha on and just talk about how they prepared and like, you know, if that's kind of what they planned on. Like, did they know that they would be seeing like certain looks? I mean, it wasn't anything too surprising that I saw. I mean, both teams were, you know, we had Striker's injury.
Sure.
Which is kind of, do you see the picture of that?
Yeah, they popped it up in the arena. It was pretty gnarly.
So you've got Striker's injury, you've got like Super and Bumper sitting, you've got like some of these things that are just kind of weird for grand finals just in general if you aren't kind of watching the progression of these teams. But yeah, just very one-sided, done, and they managed to squeeze 3 hours out of it, though. Yeah.
It was it felt fast in the arena, which is a good thing. Which means that there wasn't a ton of downtime to just be bored. I was hoping for something a little bit closer, but all in all, it was a fantastic production. Even with the few hiccups with the monitor in the arena having like a good like chunk missing, that was fixed by map 2. And it was good all around. It was a good time. Nice little stadium. It was surprising to see at the tailgate a lot of Fusion fans coming out in strength. A lot of Fusion fans, which was cool to see. Which kind of leads me, you know, gives me hope for 2020 that people are really going to go out to these you know, homestand events that are going to kind of make up the season and, you know, really support their teams. In terms of emotion, I will have to say I did get that Philly sun. That is true. I am very baked. And not in a fun way.
Just
Jesus Christ.
So many other ways to say that from one of the most prolific writers in Overwatch. Is like,
but that's the fun part. It goes both ways. In terms of emotion, it was kind of cool to see. I think we were standing in line and I recognized Super's dad was walking up. From one of the first people I got to interview just starting Overwatch was like Super, like a lot of the LG evil guys. Got to talk to him, saw his dad there, and then to see them, win, got to feel a certain way, had to hold back some feelings after the pyro popped off, and you see everybody on stage just kind of cheering about. So that was a cool moment, and definitely can understand, emotions flaring up. So, it was a really, really cool experience to see, somebody who's been in the scene for so long in front of their parents and in front of the hometown. Sadly didn't get to play, but still, help his team get to this point, and then just, hands off the wheel, and they won it in 4-0. So yeah, it was really cool.
Oh, he's here.
Oh, hello. That was really cool to see.
Damn.
Duh.
You never know. You never know.
What a coincidence.
Yeah.
Duh. I do have a question though, and that is, so Vancouver lost, obviously.
Yeah.
The entire playoff bracket was double elimination.
Sure.
The grand final, though, was single. Do you feel like we could have seen, like, would it have been a better series if we would have had to see Vancouver?
I think it would have been.
Come on, Joe, let's go into our time machine. Let's go to 2011, back to StarCraft.
Okay.
Extended series.
Not great.
Okay. I think just imagine the experience of sitting through 2 4-0s.
Yeah. I like after map 2, after Eichenwald, I was like, all right, well, this is Shock's going to win. It doesn't matter. Shock's won this game.
Yeah.
It was
so boomed after Anubis. Like it
probably would have been worse if you had to sit through another series either.
Yeah. I don't think they get back.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
But if you're, let's say you're on Vancouver though.
Sure.
Like, what advantage did you get?
First map pick.
Well, you got first map pick. Didn't have to play, I think, side many
selection
games
as well, right? Then
possibly,
like side selection being advantageous towards you. I'm not 100% on that, but I think theoretically that is actually, like, in a tight situation, like having the first map pick is not inconsiderable advantage. Though one has to say, because of the system in Overwatch where we only have to have certain maps from certain modes to select, it limits the amount of outpick potential there. Simply because it doesn't feel that we often have people who are like very good on one map of one map type and then very bad on the other. I think it's more that certain teams are very good at 2CP, some teams are very good at, and these things transition then into the other parts. So that advantage is not as big as it sounds from esports history, judging from that.
I feel like we're still very game type. Like teams have good game types, but I definitely don't think that there is no parity in terms of the maps. But I think the big swings that you'll see team by team is on the game types rather than the maps specifically. So I'm sure that'll improve in the future as the game gets figured out and patches and whatnot. So
side select was Shock every map. How so?
I'm almost positive Vancouver got first pick,
because
after that point.
That is actually true. Every map was chosen by Vancouver Titans this series. Yeah. Jesus. That is rough.
But yeah, they played less games, which doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing. It just gives you, I think, more time to prepare and really kind of feel out how teams are playing in the meta. I think for Vancouver, it really just came down to just poor execution on the day. That was not the team that played all season long. Is it a matter of, not showing up in the finals? I don't think so. It was just a bad day. It just so happened to be on the last day. We've seen them dominate all season long. We've seen them beat the looks from literally everybody. It's a mess. It's unfortunate to say the least. That had to happen on that day because we wanted this to be the big grand finale. But either way, it was two of the best teams. It was still A beautiful story to see one of those teams just transcend and go, as they say, a level beyond. So it was really cool to see.
Yeah.
What was it like from home? What was your experience like?
Well, I gotta admit, because I was talking to German friends and explaining a lot, I didn't really get to listen to the cast, which I felt bad about, and probably will go back, because I've always said that Uber is a big arena caster, and he's really only unleashed in these environments, and he has this ability to feed off of a crowd that was also seemingly very much in favor of Shock, of course, because of proximity and player nationality and whatnot. But I think overall the experience was quite nice. That's actually the best thing I can say. Nothing really stood out as like a thorn that really made the experience worse. I think I even specifically looked at the observing that was done quite well. I must say, which is
I can confirm a couple like key moments. Was from friend of the show, Peggy Moira on Twitter. Do you remember when Architect jumped up on Eichenwald to the chandelier?
Yes.
They told me
that was the
them.
last.
Yep.
Yeah,
that was them.
Was it?
Yeah.
Dope.
And then they caught the solo from Twilight onto Rascal on Eichenwald as well, where he threw the nade against the wall. Like, I was like, ooh, that's hype. So that was really cool to hear that they were the masterminds behind that one. So that was really dope.
Yeah. I mean, that is all sweet. It also fills me with hope for next season that this all works, because like being in that new arena is the best simulation of what observing will be likely. I think, not inside knowledge there, but as it will be next year, and that worked very well. Production, was there something with microphones? I think maybe at some point. Maybe I'm misremembering that. Again, like for the most part, you can't really ask me too much about the stream experience because I was so involved with explaining the matches. But yeah, I think overall I was positively surprised by the also the music act.
Zed was quite nice. I'm not a dancer, but homeboy got me to put my hands up. I put my hands up. I started jumping about. It was a good time. It was.
Did
very,
everyone
very
do
good.
that?
Yeah, the whole arena. He said hands up, and without a single shred of thought, everybody was stands up, hands up, just jumping about. It was cool to see.
Nice.
I will say, wasn't a big fan. Like, there was some like serious, like high intensity strobe lights. It was like real bad. I had to like look away. I was getting like quite dizzy. But yeah, that was really cool. He just like insane. The pyro was unexpected. I don't think anybody expected. Like, I don't know if that showed up on stream at all, but a lot of pyro. That was very surprising. Also was very concerned at the very end when they shot the confetti and then pyro went off. I'm like, is this supposed to burn? Like, is this like our mesothelioma type stuff? I'm like, am I going to have to like file a class action because I'm going to get ill from this weird burning? That was concerning to say the least. But yeah, Chad mentioned, MVPs, and that was something that I mulled about like early on. I was sitting with Kenobi, friend of the show, Contenders caster. And we kind of went back and forth on who should have been MVP, because it didn't feel like Choi should have been just like immediately after the show, but on like second recollection, we kind of debated back and forth about it. I'm like, yeah, I mean, you don't want to give it to somebody who only played a couple maps, even though they were super impactful. Yeah. But, after, sitting in an airport for about 8 hours, you know what? I think I probably would say Choi was the most consistent. I don't think there was a great choice. There wasn't like an obvious one. But Choi definitely showed up. Have we seen Sigma eat ultimates just yet? Was that the first couple?
Yeah, I think when it started, like especially May ultimates.
I mean, sure,
really frequently, but yeah, I personally thought it was a fine choice, just because they play or he played all the maps.
Definitely.
But I mean, I wouldn't have hated, for instance, to give it to Violet, for instance.
Sure.
I would have been a cool story. I haven't looked at him in depth, but what Moth did, if he was to be Finals MVP,
Definitely.
like Lucio just in general, being like, I don't want to have a super pleb take and just say, oh yeah, give it to a main support. I think there was definitely just a solid performance generally.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think in the mid-season I already pointed out, like Choi, I think if I was to wanting to win the entire season, I wouldn't put Choi on my team. If I am in a knockout situation where I'm playing against the best teams in the world and I need my off tank to outplay the other off tank, Choi is the best in the world for me at that. Like, this kid has like such weird mind tricks again and again. Also, still on Diva, like the type of outplaced with like Diva bomb interactions and just like hunting down and knowing really like where the exploit windows are, and then again that happening on different picks once again over the season. I think there's definitely times when he completely blunders and it's just like, okay, you just like spaghetti for the last 10 seconds. Just take your hands off the keyboard and press the reset button for so it's not about consistency as much, but like he just has this ability to outplay extremely high performers. I noticed it when they played in the regular season against London, and here I don't think like he had any blunders, and definitely had some pop-up situations. So I didn't hate it, but maybe I felt a little bit bad about there not being an obvious option, I think.
Yeah.
Because last year there was, I don't think there was another choice than Prophet.
No, 100%. Just to see him, kind of struggle early on with Sigma didn't look fantastic. It seemed like Bishok in general just didn't really have a good understanding of what was going on going into playoffs, and then to see the run and his growth was a really nice a nice cap to the year, to say.
Yeah,
it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Any other takes from the finals?
No, I mean, the arena was nice. I think again, it'll be interesting to see what Fusion does. I'm still trying to figure out exactly where their arena is supposed to be. Apparently it's nearby the arena or like in it. I'm not sure. But yeah, all in all, it was a pretty fun experience, pretty great experience. And yeah, just kind of excited. These events in general just kind of are like the great motivator. You get to see and meet a bunch of people, but also like to witness that kind of culmination within these last some odd months is a nice reset button to whatever nonsense is going on upstairs. So yeah, just looking forward to the future and next year, the postseason.
You got to get going on those. We're gonna do our power rankings post-mortem, I think, probably in the next couple of weeks. And
let's do it.
Like I said it last week on the show, I collected all the comments that were amazing by people who listen to the show, or at least just saw the graphic and then just started like spouting out angry things at us.
I hope that this becomes like a normal thing for us as well, so that people come at us with like their hot takes and you're just like, okay, well, if they're hot enough, you're going to get put in the post-mortem and we're just going to roast you. So if you want to get roasted or just be right, sometimes you're just right.
Also, if we said anything in terms of like dumb takes that were absolutely terrible, like for instance Chengdu, would be dope if any of the fans were to rewatch it anyway to just see what it turned out to be. Just like in the YouTube comments, just put a timestamp to the other video, and then I don't just want to roast random comments towards us. If we said dumb stuff, then
I just want to
let's roast ourselves.
I disagree. I want to roast you guys. And I just want to think of ours as really well thought out and totally correct 100% of the time. That sounds way more fun. I don't know. That sounds way more fun to me.
Yeah. It'll be fun. It'll be a good time.
All right.
Drinks will be had.
Here's some news. The Washington Justice have departed with their coaching staff. And ARC, actually, as well, has been confirmed to at least be looking for new opportunities. I haven't looked too much into the ARC thing yet. I don't know if it's like he's been released or he's just been released to be able to look for other things. But, yeah, I mean, obviously the big one here is Wizard Young, the coach is with the mostest. Obviously, the Washington, oh my God, I'm really
Justice.
The Justice did not have this season, I think, that they wanted.
Sure.
Especially if you take the last stage out of it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of turmoil there. I mean, you've got a tale of like two coaches where you've got Krusty, who went from Boston and obviously saw a lot of success in season 1 in Boston, went over to San Francisco and saw even more. And then you have
ridiculous success.
Wizard Young, who had amazing success in NYXL and was going to, bring the same thing to Washington Justice, and that didn't happen.
Thank God for the Florida Mayhem,
So I guess so. I think I already know the answer to this question. But Yiska, I want to ask you, if you're an Overwatch League team right now, are you shopping for Wizard Young this year?
As what? As a head coach?
Head coach, let's say.
No, I don't think he's a head coach. And I don't have too much inside information there in order to judge that. But from the things here, it hasn't convinced me that... because, okay, let's quantify what a head coach should do or does in the Overwatch League, because that may vary from team to team, right? Depending on the involvement, maturity, and skill set of your general manager, maybe your head coach can be like a hyper involved and hyper knowledgeable person about the game that then just delegates tasks, and leadership tasks are left to the GM, even though it would be weird, but it's not impossible. That's just like you just shift hierarchies onto that person. It's just not very common in the Overwatch League. So generally, most teams function on a way where the head coach, of course, knows his Overwatch, is probably not as knowledgeable about every part as the specialized coaches are, but first and foremost delegates, leadership personality, authority figure, and just like structures the team that way. So for the second category of head coach, that it doesn't necessarily need to know that much, makes sense that someone like Wizard Young shouldn't be considered in that regard, right? Moreover, I don't think any coach is ever completely out for reasons we've brought up on this podcast many times, where it's just like sometimes a coach works better in different environments, and maybe the coach itself or himself is not good enough at judging what kind of a team he needs to build around him in order to work at its best. But still, it's like you still update your prior, and this was not a pretty season. And I also don't put any there shouldn't be too many brownie points given for stage 4. I think that was almost inherent talent. You got to look at the people that actually scouted and selected the people that popped off, such as Corey. And those people I would give more power to. Then again, like we will see where they land. I think I wouldn't be surprised if... Who else was on there? There's a fourth person. Avala, MKL, Wizard Young,
and Shrugger.
Shrugger. I can't comment on Shrugger, but I wouldn't be surprised if these three others had trouble finding a spot in the Overwatch League, especially with their respective requirements in mind.
Mm.
I think I agree, but I think I also disagree. And what all I'm going to say is I could totally see any one of these four. I mean, especially Wizard Young, who's just like you. There's, I think, given the fact that he's still given interviews, which I think he will be, there's a lot that you can say and talk about that is information that we just don't have, right? And if he can express those challenges well enough and how he could have or would have changed that given the right resources, time, players, whatever. Jury's still out for me on that. But I could also see any of the remaining three going to contenders for a season and then coming right back up to Overwatch League. Like it kind of just happens, right? We've seen it with a few coaches now where they've, they went to Overwatch League, spent one more in Overwatch, and then now they're back in Overwatch League or contenders, and then now they're back in Overwatch League again, right? So
yeah,
I don't know.
Worked the same for Mineral, right?
Yeah, right. Mineral was one, and then we wasn't it the same for oh my god.
I mean, Bishop took a little break. Then, Moon.
Moon. Yep, that's who I was gonna.
Yeah.
So
it's probably the better example because he actually went into contenders, but yeah.
Sure, with a lot of those cases, you kind of still have to be busy with something. I assume that Wizard has always been very good at kind of marketing himself and putting himself out there and being very interesting to teams, to say the least. So I expect him to still be at least in the running for a couple positions, whether or not that's head coach. That's kind of the jury's out on that. As for the other three, I don't know. It depends on how and what they do in the postseason. I think they just kind of have to keep their names out there and just keep mingling. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them end up on anywhere else, as long as like nothing has happened, because it is so hard to just like speculate on coaching. How good were they really? I can understand some serious criticism. It was 3 stages and they really never improved much. So there is room for criticism, but it's, how much is really warranted. That's the question.
how much how much can you throw to the coaching staff on that? Like, there's a lot of argument. I mean, we already knew from the beginning that they were hamstringed, right, with the budget allocation issues of like, you're gonna have this much, cool, let's pay up the butt for these guys, and then actually let's cut that in half. Houston Outlaws kind of the same way, right? Like, how much of the fact that you can't make any changes, how much of that then is a reflection on your coaches being unable to coach? How much of that is just on maybe not having the best players that you could get? Were you given the resources to put that team together?
100%. There's a lot of variables that go into proper coaching, and it starts at the top. And if things weren't, structured properly or set up in a way that the coaches could properly coach the players and have the players buy into it, then, nothing they say is really ever going to work. And for a team that, very publicly said like, hey, we're not going to be the best, but we're going to improve throughout the season. I think they came in with accurate expectations, but just never realized how bad it could be and how hard it would be to kind of dig out from the trenches to get to somewhere, some ladder of improvement. I think it was just, shell shock, and just a mess in general that nobody's really specifically to blame for, just in terms of if I had to kind of like diagnose from the outside, and that's very hard. And again, take everything I say with a grain of salt. So I think everybody still has like some merit to them, and probably will find their way to, they'll land on their feet. I'm sure.
Yeah. Let's also not forget that different positions share different types of autonomy about the decisions. And maybe if you have a head coach on one team, you assume that this head coach put the entire roster together and that system failed. So that head coach definitely has more responsibility than the head coach that's brought in and is told, like, these are the players, make it work. That's different scenarios, different responsibilities, and also just different allocations of how much you should put the failure or success at the feet of these people.
Sure.
So that is an internal thing that is hopefully disseminated, that information, also not or hopefully truthfully between the teams, because I feel like there's, like, in business, it's just like you don't want to badmouth a person, and you shouldn't. But at the same time, you gotta give it, like,
at the end of the day, it's business. It's nothing personal.
XYZ.
It's just like, I don't think they're right for the position. I'm sure they're a great person, but if I want my team to succeed, with the information that some of these people might know behind the scenes, is this a favorable gamble? Is this a gamble at all? Do they know enough? Do they have to do more in-depth interviews with these people just to kind of really figure out, okay, what happened? What are your thoughts? Does that align with how I'm trying to structure my team? This, that, the other thing. Again, they're gonna land somewhere. I'm sure, they'll be fine. But hard to speculate on that. Coaches is always tough, because you want to applaud them, but it's hard to criticize them when things go awry, because you're really not back there, and it is a cluster, to say the least, sometimes. So,
and arguably the same is true for players as well, because their on-server performance is also not a direct representation of the actual skill set, depending on what the team requires them to do, to play around. Like, sometimes you say, oh, isn't that a terrible decision, whatnot. Like, we had this with Clockwork and Sandregard, who, of course, like, in season 1 wasn't the greatest tracer, but also, like, when your team doesn't play around a tracer well, then, like, you're not going to look as good as you could possibly do. So that needs to be evaluated itself, and the resources you're given, also the attention you're given by coaches. Like, I heard it very often during the season. It's just like, okay, this player has potential, but it's just the coaches didn't really have, like, one-on-one coaching with him. He was largely left alone, and like, there. You got to have more information. And that's also why, like, while fans want to speculate, I caution with certainty, right? Like, you can definitely, the phrasing should be, from the outside, it looks like, it seems like, maybe it is, rather than, oh,
it
God.
Is. It 100% is. Nobody ever should hire this person again. Have you seen their Twitter? Oh my God, like, ban them from everything. Get the pitchforks, get the torches. We're going to town. You can't know. And that does, like you said, it does transition to players very well, because you don't know if the team told them to play a certain way. We heard that with Atlanta. We don't know if this is a coaching decision. We don't know if this is a player decision. We don't know if the players literally just forgot, and the coaches are like, no, this is the game plan. You have to stick to the game plan. There is a lot of variables. I don't think we should really be talking in certainty at all with a lot of this speculation. You definitely have opinions, have strong opinions. I'm totally on board with that. But to speak with 100% certainty when we're just the audience, that's almost dangerous, I'd say. Because somebody's going to take that, and if you have any kind of a position in the community, somebody might take that as gospel, and then preach it to their friends and their friends, and now it becomes that's how rumors start, and that's how these nonsense, it ends up on Reddit, and it can be dangerous. So just,
by the way,
have your opinions.
By the way, if you are in chat right now and you have some questions about any of the topics we're discussing or otherwise, really good time to do it, because we've got some extra time. So yeah, I mean, yeah. So I don't know. We only get to see two dimensions with coaches, right?
Yes.
Like, I would love for, like, to get Harsha down and be like, this is a play that we designed. Everyone was in the right spots, and it just didn't happen. right?
Right.
You know, like it happens in football all the time. We're going to do a running play. Everybody, you know, does their jobs well, but someone on defense does it better. You know, all it takes is one stray shot. All it takes is like one random doomfist flick, and you know your whole play can collapse, even if everyone else is doing the right thing.
But I will say, when it comes to like great coaching, I wish that teams would celebrate that more. Not to shift focus from the players, but if the coaches are out there like giving, you know, impassioned speeches, like I kind of want to listen to what Packing has to say to his players, like in the arena, in the dugout during these games, because I think that would really kind of like highlight for the community how good somebody like that is, how good somebody, you know, that is well respected comes in and just tries to rally the troops. And I think that would be a lot more tangible that people could like get a hold of and really understand. I think coaches aren't highlighted enough to begin with. They don't get much screen time like at all. So it's just like, go ahead and market yourself, because the team isn't going to help you in most ways. I hope that more, not content, but there is a little bit of the pie for coaches to be able to show like, hey, this is something we did. This is something that I designed or the team designed, and the players executed it very well. And, you know, beautiful. Look how smart we are. Look how good our team is as a whole. It's not just the players always. There are big brains behind the scenes kind of leading the charge, or at least attempting to, and drawing up game plans for the players to follow.
And even then, you know, we've got a lot of great people who do VOD reviews. Like, you know, off the top of my head, like Peak, Dream are both two who are, you know, really excellent. And even then, it's like you can only go so far to know. It's like, is that an intentional drawn up play gone bad or well? Or is it just, I don't want to say luck, but, you know, luck. Yeah, it's just really tough to say. Can you guys break down why Titans were so unsuccessful against the Shock? I think we kind of did a little bit.
At the end of the day, I think it was just an execution thing.
Joe was actually quite correct in the episode we did before that, where you said that the Bastion aspect of it is definitely an X factor, and it did turn out to be an X factor. I think.
They were the fuller team. They had the biggest arsenal, and yes, the Titans were the team that adapted to everything throughout the stages. But when we saw them break down and struggle the most, it was when stuff got thrown at them that they were prepared for, but they had to constantly switch mindsets. It's like, okay, we have, you know, math class, and then we have to go to science class, and then we have to go to art class. If I can just sit in science class, I'm going to be a great, you know, statistician. I might be you know, a great, you know, whatever class I'm stuck in, I'll be great at that. But when I have to change all over the place, that's when things start getting muddied. And I think Shock did that beautifully, and it was very apparent that that was their strategy, to constantly level change and force them to adapt map by map by map.
What will also be interesting, and hopefully we get some coaches on here to talk about it or get to know it otherwise, is the quality of practice for the grand finals. Because like I don't think there were other Overwatch League teams currently scrimming, and if they were, they were in tryout mode, definitely not in tournament mode. And who are the other people available? Like the Gauntlet teams, right? That are currently, but many of them are in Korea. So it would be interesting to hear who they actually practice against, and if that is actually good practice and to prepare for. And because let's be honest, like these two teams, Shock and Titans, they are far in a way better than like normal contenders teams. Oh, yeah. And so the quality of practice is to be questioned. But yeah, I don't know how much a role that played, but I would like to hear if there was any difference in the quality of practice that Shock got and that Titans got.
Something else from Austin in the chat says, do you think more coaches are going to adapt Krusty's regimented style and utilize bench players more in season 3? That was really, and that's a really unique play style, right? Is you get kind of the Rascal Architect look, and then you get the Sinatra. Oh my God, why can't I think? Sinatra striker look, right? You get that's kind of like the two DPS pairs you get, and they switch quite a bit. I don't know if it's just the meta that works right now, or if that's just actual like these two players play these heroes, these two players play these heroes. We're gonna switch every other map, and we're gonna run it because they're better at those.
Right. Those heroes that we've designed for the gameplays on those maps.
I think many coaches have tried, and the crusty approach is actually the outlier where it works.
Yeah.
Like it's like I don't know.
I think for the future, it has its benefits, and I've definitely been a big proponent of having a larger roster, especially as we go into 2020. But I think it really needs somebody who is very well respected, has tenure, will get your players to respect them and buy into whatever the team has to say, and just accepts and just goes forward. Yes, it's beautiful when you're winning. Like, what would happen if Shock were bottom 10 in one of the stages? Would this have been such a dominant run throughout the entire season? I mean, winning stage 1, they won stage 2, they came second stage. They did well, okay?
They
did very well for themselves.
Finals,
yes.
And they lost 1, 2. Something happened 3 that I can't remember. I'm gonna just
they came second stage 2 or 3. Sorry.
Yeah.
To Shanghai. So they did very well for themselves this season. What would happen if morale took like a valley? Would they be able to bounce back? Was that something that Krusty was prepared to do? I tend to say he was. Do coaches have that playbook and have that those same resources that he does? I don't know. I would hope that maybe his style is deconstructed and somebody else picks it up and tries it. But I think it really, coaching in general feels like it depends on the team rather than just like, this is my style and it's plug and play and it works for everybody. It's not usually the case, especially if we're going to compare coaching to teaching. A lot of people learn different ways. You have to kind of learn how the pupils or the students or the players learn and really tailor it to them. So it's not as easy as just like USB, like insert Krusty's teaching manual 101. It's not that easy.
It's I think more so than people learn in different ways, it's people teach in different ways. Like if I was to go for an analogy, it's like, okay, so 2 animals show up in the savannah and just go like, we got to survive here, right? And like they go up to the giraffe and giraffe is like, and they are like, oh, okay, how do we survive here? And the giraffe is like, well, easy. You just go like at the top of the trees and you just eat like the apples or whatever off them. And down there, they're like, horses or whatever, and going like, we can't reach there. And the same idea, it's like, okay, just go multi-roster and whatnot. Like you just like coach all these egos into working together somehow. And we did have, if you remember, like there was a little bit of a spicy moment with Striker in the midseason. I think didn't he have a little bit of a temper tantrum on Twitter? Wasn't there something where he said like, oh, I'm looking for a team or whatever? I think he was reeled in, just like given the confidence of just like, dude, if those picks are in, you're our man. And what do you know? Hitscan becomes topical and he's in. And if you can make, like, it's at this point, you can just easily say, well, we would like to play you. We did pay for you to play.
Right, yeah.
But, like, it's not in our or it's not our fault that the meta isn't the way.
It's not in our best interest, and it's certainly not in your best interest to just give you playtime and let you fail on your own. Just like, okay, here you go. Like, you want playtime, go ahead and play and let us lose and let you have your stock tank. Like, that's not good for anybody. And it's hard as a player, I would imagine, to kind of think that way, because it's just like, I need to get out there. Like, you can't have dead air. Like, I have to keep my career going. But just trusting in the coach and being able to buy into that we will use you if we can, and they will. Just having this specific coach for the players, I think is good, and it has to be tailored to, or you have to meet in the middle ground, let's say.
Something that comes to mind though is when we had Promise on the show, had said that previous team, it wasn't as fun and healthy as an environment as it was with Valiant.
Sure.
Right. And it wasn't so much that yes, I totally agree. I think coaches have to find a way to adapt to make it an environment where morale is high and players are willing and able to learn. At the same time, I think the best players are coachable ones. I think that's kind of the ones. I mean, that's how Boston did stage 1 or season 1, right? It was getting coachable players who can just not really, but shut up and do what they're told.
Right.
And then that gets them there. And truthfully, there's probably a balance of both. And there are also some, players who are going to really thrive in a regimented, this is exactly 100%. What you do. And there's also going to be other players who thrive in something that's much more, if you're good, just keep doing your thing. If you need help, we're going to work together. Like, there's so many variables, right?
Yeah.
And there probably are coaches and GMs out there that can just you have to jam into their system in order to win. And there are probably other coaches who can look and assess and go, all right, this is what the team needs.
Yep.
Yeah.
I will also say, in a work environment, like everyone who has worked professionally knows, sometimes things just go south between humans. That's just like what happens. Like I can promise you no team went through the season entirely kumbaya and had no friction there. Like, of course that is going to happen.
Yeah.
And the problem is that, or it's not really a problem, but you got to manage the PR or the fallout of it and work with your professionals in that regard as well. Because those, for instance, like let's say last year, right? Like there were fallouts that were blown out of total proportion because of players getting involved and whatnot. I mean, if you can manage those, of course there's going to be fallouts, but there's ways to handle them.
100%.
And at the same time, once again, we have to realize that there is always this little element of having a little rascal in you that just makes you do dumb shit sometimes, that pisses other people off, or other people are pissed off, even though you made no mistakes, or you made a mistake and whatnot. It's just going to happen. There's just going to be friction, and nobody should be surprised. And that should also be totally forgiven. This idea of pristine, anything in anyone is completely foreign, but is so 2019. It's seemingly.
Yeah.
Another question that we got from Khan in chat was, do we think that some players will be kept back during traveling to fight travel fatigue?
That's interesting. So, okay.
I have and specifically they geared it to the Shock. Do you think Shock will sign any more supports for travel fatigue? I do not think that any team is going to travel with without everybody, unless they're specifically not there to play at all. I don't. The other thing is, all traveling, any big travel weeks there's at least 2 to 3 weeks between big travel weeks. So they'll spend 3-4 weeks in a certain time zone-ish, no larger than 3 or 4 time zones. And then they'll switch over. They'll have 2 weeks essentially to adjust. And then they go back to playing again.
Yeah, what Bench is saying is also very true, that you could totally see, because of resources, that teams will cut down the amount of players rather than expand in order to cut travel costs, for instance. That's 100%. Not what Bench is saying, but just that's what I'm inferring. Like he said, I think people build smaller rosters rather than add more rosters in 2020 or more to the roster. I think, that's very likely to happen, especially for teams. We don't know what the entire travel costs attached to it. Also, just the integrity of it. It's much harder to temper these egos on the road as well when there's
100%.
an added constraints. So yeah, I think I think we will once again see experimentation actually in that new environment, because now like we had this slight inclination towards rosters finding like their core 7-8 players in the first season, and then in the second season we had teams like Seoul that had a wide roster. Then Shock brought in a lot of them. There was some rotation in the upper teams, and they were also bigger in size generally. If I think about the top teams, especially in the playoffs, I think most of them had pretty big rosters generally.
Definitely had a bench.
Yeah,
definitely. Kind of, it's hard to tell if everybody had like, or what the higher average was. I don't think most of the top teams were like 12 mans. You know, Vancouver definitely had a bench. NYXL definitely had players to pull from. Yeah. And that's kind of where I sit at. I don't know if I again, from my perspective, if I agree that things are going to be smaller. I just think they're going to be more efficient to the team. And the head coach, if the head coach has experience and can manage a big roster, it's going to be efficient for them, for a Krusty, for example, to be able to have, you know, that he's seemingly has shown that he can use a very deep roster and have players buy into that. Like, hey, you might not see a ton of playtime, but if we can use you, if your specialties and if you grind hard enough, we're going to put you in and it's going to be fantastic. What they do behind the scenes, I don't know if they internally scrim, whatnot. Like, it seems like he has a good understanding of how to manage a deep roster and a large bench. But some coaches might not be able to do it. Some GMs might not be comfortable with that. So for efficiency's sake, they're going to size down. They're going to stay with 8. It's easier to manage. It's easier to deal with player ego. It's cutting back on travel costs, which is great business wise. I think it'll just have to be measured by the team. I don't know if it'll just be like a across the board smaller, because again, you're going to have to worry about practice. And I think, like Yiska said, there's going to be some experimentation done. There might be another 12-man cluster happening, and, you know, Godspeed to them, but we'll have to see.
Bench typed it before I could say it, but Bench is saying, like, he doesn't think that rosters are all of a sudden going to be walking around with 6 players.
Oh, sure, of course,
traveling, but like rather like 8 to 10 rather than we've seen a few with 12, right? Like
with 12, there's always
sweet spot.
Yes, it's
right?
the sweet spot.
You've got a couple backups in each role. You know, you have 1 to 2 backups in each role, and you can play them and do that. Banter Life also asked if certain players will stay in certain regions. I think you could do that. I think that would be a bad way to run it, and I think that the teams that, if there is a team that tries that, I don't think that they do very well. Unless
I don't think
there
we can
are
do that
players
yet.
like we have seen, you know, some teams who have players who just never saw play, and they were never
a lot of dead
intended to
weight.
saw play.
Yeah.
If there's still some of that there, I could totally see them keeping players back, but not so that they can then play when they come back to that region or whatever. Just like, no, you're not playing. You're not a two-way player for us. You're still here, but you're just chill, man. Go stream. Yeah. So
I mean, that would be kind of an interesting transition from that question. Do we see an increase in two-way players to be able to keep them back, keep them fresh? And if, you know, the duty calls, you raise them up to a full contract and fly them out to wherever you need them. Is that something we see an increase in, at least at the league average? I think that would be kind of interesting to see. I think that would be a lot more reasonable than keeping somebody on the books, leaving them without coaching, alone, and trying to manage them remotely and then flying them out to when they need them. At least you can still keep them fresh with an academy team, still have coaching.
It's not that easy though, because you still got to get all these visas handled, right?
100%. Nothing's ever that easy, but just like thinking out loud, I think that would be a little bit more reasonable, slightly more reasonable than just like leaving somebody alone and without practice and without coaching. And I think that's not great.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see. It's going to be, and I wanted to ask this to a couple people during the media kind of day. Didn't get the chance to, but it does feel like a different, a new era. It is very. I feel like this is going to be completely different. I think this is going to be a watershed moment in Overwatch to finally get like a taste of the travel and what comes with that, because I think people are like getting prepared, but I think it's going to be a massive shift, and I think it's going to have a lot of fallout. Some good, some bad. I think it's going to be another season 1 where people are like, okay, we did not expect these problems to arise. We had to put out fires all over the place, this, that, the other thing. And then season 4, season 5, people really start to get the hang of things with traveling and whatnot. So things are going to change drastically, I think. And it might not be the players and the rosters and the coaches. It might not be like the very superficial things, but just behind the scenes, what kind of things that these players have dealt with these last 2 seasons are going to be, I think, completely different going in to practicing and preparing for travel and what comes with 2020. So this is a new era. This is different.
Every season we've had something that's been drastically different, right? Season 2, obviously we added 8 expansion teams.
Definitely.
Which, you know, again, threw a whole wrench into how we evaluated teams and how we expected them to approach the season. A lot of people were like, with this many teams, teams could have way smaller rosters because there's less prime talent. And that wasn't really totally true. We still had multiple teams at 12, I believe. We still had multiple teams at 10 plus. We can only speculate. And again, like show me a ledger with how much travel is going to cost and how much that changes by adding or removing a player. And you all of a sudden have a lot more. And then you have to cross check that with, you know, how much you're willing to allocate to travel over a year. It's like, okay, we've got this budget, we're going to allocate.
That's no travel. Visa. That's no food. That's no leisure pay. Like that looks real good, I would imagine, for the bookies. Like that looks great for business. So like I can, to Ben's point, like I can definitely see where that thought process goes, and I'm sure that some teams will definitely cut back, but I'm interested to see the league-wide average if it increases or decreases.
I will also say, I personally, and that's okay, I don't think it is established yet, or like it will definitely be that case, but I think the travel will matter more to who's good and who's not than even switching from dive to goats did.
Sure.
I think we will be absolutely gobsmacked at who's good, suddenly sucking and who's suddenly good.
Yep.
I think it will be very, very significant.
I think travel has a lot more to do with that, though, than like the idea that players are just going to be tired and they're not going to get I think it just has to do with the physical soul traveling from New York to Guangzhou would have. But I don't think that just that like the time difference and adjustment time is actually that big of a deal. I think we might disagree.
Okay, interesting. Well, I think this will really surface in the power rankings we do.
I think it's going to eat their souls.
Yeah, I think it's going to be another deal breaker for a lot of these kids that are like, dude, you know what? I like the idea of this, but in reality,
these kids haven't had a consistent work schedule ever in their lives.
I agree.
So I think that this is probably easier for them to transition to than it would be someone like me, who I'm like, I go to bed at 11, I wake up at 7:30, done.
I think for some it might be. I highly suspect that people are going to get broken by this.
Broken, then it will really come down to the quality of the managers, just
100%
ensuring practice environments in these new locations. I think that's going to be a huge issue. Actually.
I don't think anybody has any idea what to do. Yeah. They have no clue what to do, whether it's like reviewing on planes or like renting out like land centers to practice in. Like, I hope that they have some sort of like first, secondary, and like tertiary plans, because like this is going to be a mess if you don't have like, if you're still figuring out visas and you haven't even thought about that yet.
It's also going to be a mess. I don't trust every team to figure that out.
No, I mean, like going back even to season 1 in the preseason, like we tend to forget, like Fusion didn't even show up to the preseason. Like, this is not unprecedented that teams are just like, we need more time. We can't do this right now. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if certain players aren't going to have visas in time. We saw that this season. I expect this to be another just hopefully not. I don't wish this, and I'm not trying to be cynical, but in reality, like, this is going to be a mess.
Do you think that we see in the next 2 to 3 years an Overwatch League team that has their own plane?
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that.
I think I could even see partnerships already.
I mean, didn't World
Not
Cup
with American
team,
Airlines though. Hey, anyhow.
didn't like a World Cup team last year?
I know Laser Kittens did like way back in the day.
That's I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
That I remember.
I don't know how. Yeah, I'm not gonna speak on that, but
like, I don't know. I would have to look at the cost, right? But if you're, and again, like, is it worth a cost of a private plane for, $1 million in prize money?
Depends.
Or, right? So,
can
like,
you
again,
set up the plane and trick it out?
We don't have enough info, but part of me is like, what's the ideal situation? You have really comfy bunks and you have a little land center on your plane.
Just saying.
And now you have to run 12
out.
so
That
you
might
can
be
scrim
on the plane
because your Wi-Fi is not good enough. So you have to have a little tournament server you bring with you everywhere.
There you go.
And then you have
everybody's just hooked up by LAN.
6v6.
LAN on laptops.
I've had it with these monkey fighting pings on this Monday to Friday train.
That was a beautiful workaround. Well done. I feel like that deserves a clap.
That is actually I didn't make that up. That was that's censored version of Snakes on the Plane by it was really terrible. It's famous for that.
I was hoping that was just like your wit shining, but it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah. Lots of really great questions, guys. Keep them coming, especially in all the Discord and stuff like that. But speaking of which, we gotta get out of here. Actually, we're at time.
It's that time.
It's that time. Big thank you to our Patreon producers, Battlecrab, Maid, and Peter Y. If you like the show, go to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. Sign up. We got a lot of great perks there, including your own role in our Discord where we discuss the show, upcoming topics, and just like Overwatch League in general. And we're all three pretty active on it. So we're really excited to have those conversations. So that's patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. Do it. Support the show. Support the content that you love so much. And if it's not us, go support another creator that you love so much. Just support creators. Do it.
Pay it forward, boys and girls.
Otherwise, too, as well, you can also sub on Twitch, twitch.tv/KickedTripod, and that will also get the role in Discord and a couple of cool emotes. I actually think I'm having Reagan make some new emotes for us.
Oh,
damn!
So that might be kind of cool. So we'll see about that. No timelines on that at all. Otherwise, follow us, twitter.com/tactical_crouch. We record live at 11 a.m. Pacific time at twitch.tv/blizz, or not Blizzbro. That was my old Hearthstone podcast.
Oh, damn.
KickedTripod. I know, right? We record there Tuesdays, 11 a.m. Pacific time. So, all right. Well, besides that, Joe, shout outs for the week. Where can people find you?
You can find me on all the socials at Volamel. That's VOLAMEL. I've got stuff to transcribe. Going to be writing a reflective piece for Esports Heaven. Got a wrap up for Polygon in the works. And then it's off to the races. We're gonna do some gauntlet stuff. Maybe I'll share some stories on the YouTube that are a little bit more appropriate for the old YouTube. But other than that, just preparing for BlizzCon. I will probably be there. 99% sure I'll be there. So again, come say hi.
Buy
It'll be
sunscreen.
a good time. Definitely bringing sunscreen this time, 100%. But just kind of chilling and getting back to work.
Sweet. Yiska, what about you, man? Shoutouts for the week. Where can people find you?
I think I'm going to get a thinking it over out on the YouTubes. Germany's on Thursday. There's a national holiday, so I'll be off work there. Got some exciting talks this week. We'll see how that goes in terms of a new writing platform. And then, generally just on Twitter is probably the best call at Yiska out.
Sweet. For me, you can find me everywhere at KickedTripod. I'm going to be doing a lot more streaming. A little less World of Warcraft streaming because I just realized I'm a really bad streamer when I stream World of Warcraft. So, probably some Apex again, some TFT, maybe a little Fortnite here and there. We'll see. Build some forts. I heard mechs are back in.
Oh, no.
And I figured that way I can get some kills at least.
You're the person this is created for.
I know. I'm coming back. Just give me an aimbot next time.
There you go.
Yeah, so
Soldier 76 alt.
I'll be playing some different games. I'll probably play some Overwatch too. Katie loves Overwatch, and so we play that together. We hop into quick play and just kind of dunk on some fools. It's pretty fun.
There you go.
So yeah, you can everywhere at KickedTripod. The show posts to YouTube at youtube.com/KickedTripod. Otherwise, search Tactical Crouch everywhere else. Again, thank you to our patron producers Battle Crab, Made, and Peter Y. Go to patreon.com/tactical crouch. Paul Blart Mall Cop. Go to Tactical Crouch, sign up, support the show. Let's hang out. We're going to do 2 Patreon game nights this month because we missed last month because of TwitchCon and Grand Finals.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Other than that, we're out, guys. See ya for the post show after the show. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye. Goodbye.